Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grit Talk Show, the 33rd episode. And for those of you who are new in my connection or in Marine's, the Grit is a platform which connects coaches to organizations and to end clients. We are a community-based organization, so we are a group of expert coaches who are mostly ICF credentialed and have internationally recognized certifications. So do check us out on www.gridcoaches.com. You can find all the details of what the different offerings of the coaches are. And in this series of Grid Talk Show, we cover our members' journey and different niches that they're working on and things they're passionate about. So today we have with us a wonderful member of our community, Medine. She is also part of our core team. So Marine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Khadijah. Thank you. And I'm really, really excited and happy to be here.
So glad to have you. So Marine has chosen a wonderful topic that is self-love and compassion. And in today's world where, everything is we're all in a rush and hustling, especially those present on LinkedIn, they would know. I think we get no time to actually indulge in self-love, right, Marine? So when it comes to self-love and you chose self-compassion, is there a difference between the two?
Yes, absolutely. But before I get to the difference, I want to share a really, an interesting thing that came up once in a session, and that this topic I feel very, very passionate about because in all the years that I've been doing coaching, I've realized that one of the core problems that any person that I've worked with, whether and whatever capacity that they're in, if they're coming to me as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a executive, the problem always is that one or many of their own needs are neglected. So self-love usually is the core foundation that is so important for us to show up show up properly everywhere else. And that's the one thing we are neglecting. So I would love to talk more about this here. And I remember that once a client said when this topic came up, and she said that self-love, but isn't that being selfish? So
Yes,
I would revisit this at the end of this session because there's a lot to talk about that. Now, addressing your question, definitely there is a difference between self-love and self-compassion, two very related concepts, but two very different outlooks to how we contextualize them. So self-compassion is when you make a mistake or when you fail at something. How do you address that internally? Do you forgive yourself and you take it as a learning opportunity and move on? Are you kind to yourself, accepting that mistakes happen? Everybody makes mistakes. Or do you dwell on it? Do you self-criticize? Do you judge yourself? Do you label yourself as an utter failure who cannot get anything done? So at that moment, we enter a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset. So if you're compassionate, you are showing up for yourselves more kindly, accepting that mistakes happen, failures happen, and it's quite okay to be where you are and not indulge in negative self-talk and negative self-criticism. Self-compassion or self-love, on the other hand, is more a general mindset or a general lifestyle that you adopt. So where self-compassion is a moment-to-moment thing, or something that happens in a specific situation, self-love is just there in the background. What do you do to take care of your emotional needs, your physical needs, your psychological needs, and at times your spiritual needs as well? So whatever you do in those areas is all self-love.
Yes. So, Marine, this brings to mind this question that too much of everything they say is bad.
Yeah.
So there are some people who maybe love themselves too much. Does narcissism crop up from there? How is narcissism? What's the line, the cutoff line where it turns into narcissism?
I'm so glad you asked that question because, again, like I said in the beginning, the minute I start talking about self-love, we've been so used to neglecting self-love that we say to ourselves, oh my God, no, 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 we cannot indulge too much in ourselves because that would be selfish, or we don't want to become narcissists. Um, there is a very, very clear difference. So narcissism is when you think you are better than everybody else. So it is in comparison to other people. You think you are better than them, and hence they have to be way less than who you are. Self-love is just that you are good. You are amazing. You deserve to be good. Where self-love is self-driven, it's all about you. Narcissism is other-focused. It's about you show up to be better than somebody else. So you put somebody else down to be better than them. And also because, when we create a certain image of ourselves, how we want to portray who we are in front of other people, that's also a kind of narcissism. So we see a lot of romantic relationships. Since it's Valentine's Day, it's apt to talk about that. Then one partner is narcissistic because not only they think and act as if they're better than the other partner, they put the other partner down, and hence they expect the other partner to look after themselves way more than they would for the other person, because they think they're better, they're deserving for more. And then they create a certain image of power and autonomy as compared to the other person. So that's what
That's so
narcissism is.
true.
Self-love
Well,
is
does
just
this
about taking care of
spring from
yourself, your needs.
insecurities?
Sorry?
Sorry to cut you.
No.
Does this spring from insecurities, trying to
Yeah.
put the other person down? And I think we might be delving into another territory here, but gaslighting. So is
Yeah.
that part of that?
Yeah, for sure. Interestingly, I think a lot of times when our cups are empty, we have not extended the same love to ourselves, but we want others to direct that love to us. This could sort of stem from that as well. This could be insecurities because we were not loved by others, or we did not extend the same love to others. It could be insecurities. It could be, you know, if we didn't take care of our emotions. A relevant concept here is self-esteem. Again, that is a little different from self-love and self-compassion. Self-esteem is how you think about yourselves. So, in schools, you see a lot of kids boosting their self-esteem by bullying others. They feel that if they're going to put other people down, other kids down, they're going to maintain a certain sense of autonomy and power and authority over those kids, and maybe, get their respect that way. So to retain that self-esteem, they can't draw a line between how it is to show up for themselves and how it is to show up for others. So that definitely is a relevant concept, but yeah, an entirely different stream altogether.
Mhm. Yes, another thing that comes to my mind is I think as women, we are perhaps more critical a lot of times.
Hmm.
And I think because we do have a lot of responsibilities, like, when it comes to managing the home as well, it's the woman who has to. And nowadays, because, with the inflation rising and, they even need to work, they have to be the extra hands too. So in all this rut, they tend to, and naturally also, even if they're not doing all that much, I feel that women are more self-critical. Is
Yeah.
it the same for men as well? What have you experienced in your practice? Are men as negligent or as critical about themselves when it comes to loving themselves?
I'm pretty sure a lot of women would be, like nodding their heads at this question and, smiling inwards or outwards, because so many can resonate with this, right? So from, if you talk about compassion, studies show that women have a higher compassion quotient. And it also makes sense from an evolutionary point of view. Women are the kind of role we play in society, raising kids, making sure how kids are, how the next generation turns out to be. The survival of that generation depends on a mother being compassionate. How many times we've heard that a certain body reaction happens when a mother hears a child cry. The same body reaction or an emotional reaction may not happen for a man, and this is how this is completely biological. So it makes sense for them to have a higher compassion quotient for others. But when it comes to self-compassion, it's a very individual case, right? Uh, it's more individualized how women talk about themselves or take care of themselves than men. It has nothing to do with science or biology, but it has everything to do with society, with culture, with what we have been taught, and how we have internalized those messages. We know in our own society, women from a very young age are taught that self compassion is not something that they need to be investing in. They should be investing in compassion. They should be there for other people, whether that is as a mom, whether that is as a daughter, sister, even at work. With female executives or female professionals, female doctors, female workers are required to to adjust more, to be more flexible, to neglect their own needs, to neglect their own families, to neglect their own time, and somehow put in more work. So it is just that that kind of mindset that we grow up with. Not only that, we look at other women in our lives putting everything and everybody else before their own needs. Again, we internalize that message. We feel that self-compassion is something that we don't have the time for, and it's not something that we should be doing because we'll be selfish. How can we do something for ourselves when we have little kids? How can we do something for ourselves when we have parents to take care of? How can we ask for things for ourselves in a work environment when we are trying to prove ourselves? I actually had a client come to me once, and she had just come back from maternity leave, and she was so guilty for taking about 6 months off. This was not in Pakistan, so they got a much higher maternity leave mandated by the government. So it's not like she was, taking something that she was not supposed to take. Uh, to take care of her child, her newborn baby. Again, not a vacation, but she was so guilt-ridden for taking these 6 months off that she had to go back to work, and she had to ask for one thing. You'd be surprised what that one thing was. She didn't have a parking spot at her work, because before she used public transport. It's not in Pakistan, so in case you're wondering how. But she said that, how can I now ask for a parking spot? And she needed that parking spot because she had to bring her child in a car seat, and hence she needed to bring her car. But she felt like she couldn't ask for that because so many adjustments and changes would have to be made in order for her to get her much needed and much deserved parking spot. So she was not even putting her needs first. So
Yes.
automatically nobody else would. So
Yes.
definitely self-compassion is something that we don't do. And then we are very
Yes.
miserable when we don't get what we should be getting
Yes.
because we never asked for it. We
Yes.
never
We never
prioritized
asked
that.
for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Marine, compassion is sensitivity towards others, and self-love, as your client also said, sounds selfish at times. And
Yeah.
as the other lady with the child, she was so hesitant to even ask for what she needed. So that's the height of self-negligence, I would say.
Yeah.
So how do we strike a middle path?
Mm.
How is there a way that a balance can be struck in where we're taking care of others as well,
Yeah.
and like we are satisfied internally that we're not being selfish, and we're just asking for our right. How
Hmm.
do we do that? Is there boundary setting? Are there other means for that?
Okay. So, Khadija, look, I always say that, whereas there is a marked difference between what's compassion and self-compassion, like we discussed, but there's also a link. So, self-compassion, sorry, the other way, compassion may not be a necessary condition for self-compassion. You can still be compassionate to other people, even if you're not compassionate to yourself. Our mothers are a classic example of that. They're amazing with how apt they are to our needs, but they will neglect themselves like no tomorrow. But the other way around, I feel self-compassion is sometimes a necessary condition for compassion, uh, or for better compassion. If our cups are filled, we will find it much easier to fill other people's cups, and better. we'll show up for other people better. We'll show up for our relationships better. We'll show up for our work better because our cup is full. Our needs are taken care of. Our emotional, psychological, physical, spiritual needs are taken care of. So we can be better at all these relations. When we are mindful of our needs, we can tune into other people's needs much better.
Mhm.
I so many moms say that whereas they love their kids, but they sometimes resort to screaming, sometimes even hitting them.
Mm.
So the compassion factor is there. They'll drop everything if the child needs them. If the child falls sick, they love them to bits. They'll drop everything, but they're not showing up for them in the most effective way because their own cups are empty. They've not taken out time for themselves, their health,
Mm.
their emotional needs.
So there's
So
anger and resentment in the background, and
exactly.
that's being so the unexplained anger towards a child could
Yeah.
sometimes be displaced anger because we're letting that build up by neglecting ourselves and our
Right.
own needs.
And Khatija, very good point, because what we have to understand, that when we don't fill up our cups, we are not compassionate to ourselves. Every mistake we make, we are pulling and tearing ourselves down. We're blaming ourselves. We're criticizing ourselves. Even when we achieve something, our first go-to reaction is to find out what we didn't do right. Oh yeah, great, a great meeting that I just had, but oh my God, that went wrong. That went wrong. I was terrible there. I was terrible here. God forbid if the meeting was bad, then you just tear yourself off completely.
Yes.
Terrible. I'm a loser. You start labeling yourself. I can never be good
Yes.
at this. And if you don't show that was self-compassion. If you don't show self-love, you are not taking care of your health, you're not getting enough sleep, you are not doing something for yourself, you don't even have time to meet friends. What happens is that all of this lack of these two things lead to a lot of negative emotions. So we all know some of them that have popped up into our lives when we neglect ourselves. um, Jealousy, frustration, anxiety, depression, resentment, all of that, sadness. So many of us are sad. We don't realize why we are
Mm.
sad. And we
Mm.
often blame other people or life situations for why we are this way. But actually, it's all internal. On the other hand, if our cups are filled, then we get a lot of positive emotions. There is joy, there is peace, there's empathy, there's compassion for others comes out naturally, then because when your
Mm.
needs are filled out, you have the mental capacity to be more aware of other people's needs, and then to also be motivated to be there for other people. So definitely very good point.
Yes. So the biggest excuse, Marine, is often that we don't have time, as you said. So, how is the time management to be done to be able to actually listen to ourselves? And there's also, I'd like to add here the mind body disconnect, because we're so wrapped up in the daily routines that, we are not listening to our bodies. We're not even aware that,
Yeah.
a certain part needs to be taken care of
Yeah.
till it's screaming for help, till it's screaming that, for attention, that look at me, I need to be sorted.
So true. I think the most basic problem here is lack of awareness. And lack of awareness because we don't stop. Imagine if you're in a train, you're rushing by, you're going to miss out on all the beauty which is passing you by. But if you just stop, if you just see what's happening, you're going to feel so much better. So I think that's what happens, that we need more awareness. Just one second, Khadija, I'm suffering from smog issues. Right. So awareness, and to that link, to slow down, we need mindfulness. We have to be more aware. Just take a moment's pause to notice, what are we feeling in our bodies? How tired are we? What are we feeling in our hearts? What emotions are there that we are completely neglecting or in a complete self-denial phase? And what is happening in our brain? How much are we criticizing ourselves? How much are we letting other people's judgments and opinions become ours? So, all these three things we need to pause, hit the stop button. Like literally, I tell some of my clients to physically imagine a big stop or a pause button and to go hit it. And it just automatically puts your brain in like, oh, take a deep breath and take a few seconds. What's happening? The minute we realize we're doing it, it automatically puts us in a problem solving mode. And when we are in a problem solving mode, we realize how to get out of that. I want to say one more thing here. There's a lot of research done by Christian Neff, and she talks about this very important point that always resonates with me, that if a friend was in this situation, we would treat that friend with so much kindness and not harsh judgment. So when you are dealing with yourself, deal with yourself as if that was a friend, that was happening to a friend. So
This is something we're taught in
thank you.
NLP as well, the perceptual positioning,
Right,
where we actually have to imagine that, we are the friend and we are giving
exactly.
ourselves.
So it automatically helps us to slow down time and then to be there for ourselves. The way, if a friend was in trouble, we drop everything. It wouldn't matter if we didn't have enough
We're
time.
so much kinder to others than we are to ourselves.
Exactly. If a spouse or a child needed something, we wouldn't use the excuse of time. We just be there for them. So I
Mhm.
would suggest to use the same philosophy for ourselves.
Yes. So that's wonderful, Marine. Thank you so much. Are there this mindfulness and this trying to imagine ourselves as, somebody else so we can be a bit more kinder to ourselves? Are there any other parting tips or sorry for that?
Yeah,
We've
I'm sorry for putting
no, no,
everybody through this, but this is
no,
us
no,
these
no.
days.
No, no, actually, I'm apologizing to you that, thank you so much for making it today despite the cough. So, uh, what other things can we do to actually love ourselves more? Like
Yeah.
practical steps. Uh, this was awareness, like becoming more in tune with our needs as well. Are there any other tangible things that we can do?
Yeah.
Um, in way that we can manage around time and just tell ourselves that we
Yeah.
need this, and how else can we do this?
So I can talk about this for an hour, cough permitting, but so I'm only going to touch on a few because there are so many ways we can show up for ourselves, and it's funny how this is the first thought that comes to you, right? That, oh, what can we even do? As if there is not enough to do for ourselves, but there is a lot. I'll just cover a few basic points that we can do. So I think because we are here because of coaching, I think that's the first thing I'm going to flag. What coaching does is to let you pause. Number one, there's an hour just dedicated to yourself and an internal conversation that happens during that hour. A lot of self reflection happens. So that immediately puts you in that awareness phase that you were talking about. You set some goals and then you're better able to reach them. So, coaching, I would recommend everybody who's dealing with something similar to take up coaching. So Khadijah, you'd be surprised how many times somebody at the end of the coaching session, especially if it was their first experience, have said to me that I am amazed to realize that never before in my life have I dedicated 1 hour to myself. Can you imagine? And they're like, wow, I feel like a different person because I never gave myself this much time. So we don't give ourselves that time. But when I think coaching sort of holds you liable for that. When you know you've booked a session, you've paid for a session, you get into it. You spend all that time with yourself, and then you are hooked. You realize it releases those much necessary feel good hormones that we need, and when those hormones are released, you realize how much it's benefiting you, and then you keep on doing it. So that's definitely one, a very tangible step to take. Get up, find a coach that's relevant to your specific challenge, and book a session for sure. Another thing that we can do, easy for us to do, pick
Mm.
one self-care ritual, just one. Doesn't have to be very complicated. The most simplest, a nighttime skincare routine for women or men, a massage every week, um, really working on getting your 8 hours of sleep. Very tangible, very much in your control. Doesn't need money, doesn't need anything. You just need to make sure that you switch off at a certain time and go to sleep. Less time on your phone means more time for your sleep. So all that Instagram scrolling happening just before bedtime, no. Khadija, I switch my phone off at 9 p.m. I literally go put it on flight mode and I put my phone in a drawer just to give my brain a signal that after this, no more phone time. And when I do that, I actually am able to, start bedtime at a much reasonable hour than I would if I was, stuck on my phone. And of course, diet. Mindful eating is again something very tangible you can do. Eating at the right time, eating earlier, all of that is self-love. You're taking care of yourself. And then the last one, so one definitely, a coaching session, one self-care activity that you can do every single day or every weekend, depending on your time, and pick one constructive activity. It could be anything you enjoy: sports activity, a walk, reading a book, any one constructive activity outside of your personal and professional life that could bring you some joy. There is an energy map that I do with a lot of my clients that might be useful to talk about here, is that, if you think about all the activities that you do in a day, from the most basic to, giving food to your family, to the most advanced, such as, work assignments or any other thing that you're committed to, think about which of these activities are draining your energy and which ones are engaging your energy. So in a day, you need one activity that is engaging your energy. In my case, I love to spend 1 hour in the gym every single day. So that's not only the self-care routine checked out, but it's also the one constructive activity. My mind works better. I feel much taken care of. It's not something that, yes, physically it's draining my energy, but it's not something that I'm dreading. I'm like, oh my God, another workout session. It may not be true for other people. For other people, it might be a book reading or a sports activity or painting. Again, an amazing activity for those who enjoy painting. So definitely one self-care activity, one constructive activity that you enjoy, and if possible, a coaching session. These are my three tangible things
Yes.
to begin with.
So wonderful, Nireen. One thing, my uh, main key takeaway today is that because initially I just equated self-love with actual physical pampering, but what you've actually set the record right is that it's not just it is, of course, that is included too, but what's more important is being kind to ourselves,
Yeah.
forgiving ourselves, checking ourselves when we have that negative self-talk, pressing that stop button.
Yeah.
So I think these are things that we don't work with. There are people who still indulge in some amount of, um, physical pampering, but no check on this. I think that's where coaching actually comes in,
Yeah.
because, the coach actually makes you more aware of
Yeah.
when you need to hit the stop button, when you need to check yourself. And it is very empowering in that way to actually find the solutions from within yourselves and be more self-aware
Yeah.
and find the solutions to all the problems that we have. Because as you said very rightly, that in everyday life we don't take out that 1 hour for ourselves.
Yeah.
I think hardly 30 minutes to actually ponder upon things that need our attention, or at an internal level.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Marine, for adding to our knowledge and sharing all your insights. For those of you who are watching, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments, because we realize that a lot of you watch it on your own time and may not be watching right now. So Marine will definitely get back to them, and if there's something for me, I'll get back to you. So do keep watching our very exciting upcoming episodes as well. And thank you, Marine, once again. Have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you so much, Khadija. You too. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.